So what are we getting into today?
We want to show all the main features that we have built within the simulation, and we thought it might be beneficial to also highlight how we would do it if we were going from start to finish. So this way you can see how the learning management in comparison to simulation makes for an inclusive training opportunity. So we're going to show you all the main features that we've already discussed from the introduction phase, and we're going to just highlight those for you, and we're going to go into a multi-segmented full storyline experience, right?
Perfect.
So on the main screen, as you load out and you come in, the very first thing you'll see is a whole bunch of options on the left-hand side. The first two, new scenario and join scenario, are about how you would participate, whether you're doing this by yourself or as multi-participant, like in a multiplayer setting. Once you get beyond that, you would go into the tutorial experience. We're not going to cover the tutorial because it's its own right an experience by itself. In the tutorial, what it allows you to do is through a story-driven, voice narrated, guided, right? It's guided for you to help you understand all the buttons you would need to be able to utilize this. So it takes you from start to finish through a storyline driven experience. And then we have many other options that we're going to cover as we go through today. As a first note, what I recommend as I were doing this, if I were the senior instructor for a course or a class or even one-on-one with another participant, is that I would recommend that people have a notebook with them to jot down their concerns or their focus areas as things come up within the experience so that they can look at those again as we go into the after-action review process. What we'll start with today of any experience, what I would typically do is I would go into the learning module. The learning modules really kind of act as an umbrella. So if you can imagine a learning management system, or LMS, as having a pre-simulation experience and a post-simulation experience, they help to guide you and to help you in your learning curve with baseline or doctrinal or policy information. So within our learning module, we have a pre-sim and a post-sim. And out of that, you can see that we have several different references that we might be able to look at that would provide us baseline information that is nationally recognized.
Yeah.
What we did out of that is we pulled over 200 multiple choice questions that are all factually based on national references. And we have an auto-generating quiz or test. It randomizes only 20, so it doesn't take that long to do it. And it'll grade you based on correct responses. You'll see in the post-simulation experience, when we go into the assessment phase, this division of the test questions into 7 core knowledge areas is very important. So remind me if we don't, when we get to the very end, it doesn't impact the simulation at all as you're doing it, but at the end we want to go back to what are these core knowledge areas and what does it really mean to the overall experience.
So you can kind of track, maybe one of those 7 areas that you might not be as well versed in versus maybe something that you're just really great at.
Correct.
Right, so you're able to track kind of what needs improvement.
Right, and that's really important too as we start off, is that test data and assessment data and the simulation experience data is all exportable by the customer if they want it. So this is stuff that you can retrieve on your own later to look at analysis of where am I strong and where am I weak. So you go into the pre-test and it's going to generate just like that 20 questions, and I thought maybe it'd be fun for us to go through them together.
Oh man, I haven't taken a test in a while. Let's see how I do.
And it is challenging. I'm the one to help develop this system, and I don't get 100% either. So
I'm going to copy off of you.
Yeah, a significant challenge for fire and rescue supporting law enforcement during an incident is establishing a staging area, establishing fire suppression, gaining accurate accountability of all personnel, or donning protective equipment.
Well, I know from what I see within our simulation is we focus a lot on staging areas and where do people enter buildings, where do you need to park, where do you stage victims. So right off the bat, I think A is what I would pick.
That might be a good choice because I don't remember either. But I'll tell you, I know it's not establishing fire suppression systems. 80% of call-outs for fire and rescue are not about responding to a fire. It's about other things, to include incident response.
Okay.
So I know I can eliminate that. I think accountability of all personnel is usually listed as something that's also high priority.
Yeah.
But I do know that a staging where you're immediately going to park at is also important. So I think it's one of those two, but let's go with A. NIJ RF1, body armor is generally not designed to protect the wearer against.
Yeah, this is where you lose me.
Yeah. So that is a Justice Department program that specifies what level of body armor you must have in order to protect you against a certain type of bullet size or ballistic.
Okay.
So you can imagine soft body armor compared to body armor with plates, compared to the plates being a ceramic compared to a metal plate. The more protection you have, the more it's going to protect you against a high caliber like an assault rifle or a sniper weapon or whatever. So RF1, off of that, my guess would be is that it would be the lowest one possible. So out of all of these, I would say it's 9mm Luger full metal jacket. It's answer B.
Okay.
Okay.
So you will see if you were right at the end of this pretest?
You will not see what the correct answers are. You'll only get a grade, and that's also important to know. Why is it we don't give you the correct answers? It's because it's tied in those core knowledge areas and invisible artificial intelligence triggers we have within the sim. Essentially, it is going to look for those core knowledge areas if they occur within your simulation experience, and it's going to tie that into your replay with associated facts from the testing.
Okay.
So now we don't want to give you correct information until you've had a chance to look at your own system and have that as, you know, potential dialogue and discussion within the replay. It reinforces that. Then when you go into the post-test, you have the exact same questions again, and what we believe is that you're going to see a significant increase from your pre-test to your post-test based on that. So we don't want to automatically give you the correct answer.
Sure.
Right? Which incidents should first responders develop interdomain, which is EMS, fire, law enforcement, tactics, techniques, and procedures that include better situational awareness? Active shooter, hazardous material, or natural disaster, or all?
I mean, I gotta say all.
I would think all too, right? Yeah, I agree. Not to bore and draw out the entire video experience here, we're not going to go through every question. So we're going to come back to you at the last question, and we'll show you what our score ends up being.
Right,
so stay tuned in a minute.
All right, we finally made it to the end.
Yeah, I'm not sure we did that great, but we're on the last question, so we'll go ahead and fill that out. In an 11-year study from 2000 to 2011, how many shootings occurred at a hospital?
Okay, I should know this because I put together the chart over the national shootings and their locations.
Yeah, it's been a while, though.
But it's been a while.
Yeah.
I believe it is, I think the number is in the middle somehow. So I don't think it's 14. I don't think it's 91. So I'm going to go with 44.
So here's my thinking on it, is that right now we're at about 17 or 18 active shooter incidents in 9 months of data collected for this year. Last year, I think it was 24. The year before, it was very similar at about 25. And I know that the highest level of active shooter incidents is workplace and then schools. So as a percentage, I believe hospitals or clinics are probably number 3 on the list. So if I had to make an estimate of, let's say, you know, average is probably around 15 to 17, you know, I think we're probably, I think we're going to say around, I think it's 14 or maybe 44, but it's definitely not the other two.
Right.
Which ones would you pick, 14 or 44?
After hearing about how it's the third most likely, I'm going to say A, 14.
Okay, yeah, let's go with that. I think that's probably a good guess too. Ready to find out what we got?
Let's see.
All right. Woo!
Not great.
Not great. 13 out of 20. And for the viewers, I'll let you know this. These are not always common sense type of answers. What I mean by that is that it's very factually accurate, and you don't realize some of that, to include explosive ordnance standoff distances in case an active shooter is including some type of improvised explosive device within his plan. So it is important to understand those type of considerations. And if you don't know the standoff based on net explosive weight of a pipe bomb compared to a truck bomb, right, this will be an eye-opener for you. So it'll show you at the end. We'll find out what our real answers are when we do the post-test. But this is a good start point. It's a good way to start, you know. And it gets your mind focused, and it lets you know there's always room for improvement, right? We've been building this process and this system for 2 years. Yeah. And, you know, there's always room that we should have. So from here, you could do review, but it is deactivated to try and guide you to get into the post process, the post testing capability. So that's really all that we can do to this point. So we're going to come back out of that. And I'm going to take you back to the main screen. Now that we know what we got, I want to cover some of the other things that are in here. We did the learning module, and what I want to show you also that you have is loadouts. So we're going to go to the loadout screen, which then is broken down into units compared to vehicles. So there are default capabilities that assumes that this is what you typically have if you're a police officer or a fireman, and this is what you would have in a patrol car or in your pump truck engine. We may not always get that right, and every department may be a little bit different.
Right.
So what we've done is allowed you to go in and customize these things and change and add the things that you think you should be carrying. And it's also a way to say, what if?
Yeah.
What if I do the simulation and it's like, wow, if I'd have had a larger individual first aid kit with chest seals in it, I could have triaged and supported chest wounds a lot faster. Mm-hmm. So now I could go and do the simulation again, and I can look at my performance capability of changing out my loadout. So you can do the default and you can customize it. I just wanted to show that and let you know that we add content to this. Mm-hmm. Every time we do a package release, there's something a little bit new, a little bit different, whether it's a new gun, a new medical treatment device, some type of new capability, and we're looking for user feedback. The customers tell us what they need in the simulation, and we build it in, and that's then included in the subscription capabilities also.
Yeah, well, something that I think is really great about this, you talked about being able to test with different products. And if you're coming into your budget cycle and you're like, hey, we tested this and we thought that we really needed this new piece of equipment. We tested it virtually without spending any additional money. And we realized, yeah, we saved X amount of victims using this new product. That's something that you could potentially bring as evidence when you're looking to increase or, get approval on a purchase item.
When you need some type of justification, you don't always have to wait for feedback. You can at least use this to do a try and decide before buy. Right. So this can give you not just experience through users doing that, but again, the data's there. Mm-hmm. So you can take the data and look at it and say, what was my capability to save people if I used the task organization of 8 fire and rescue in a rescue task force compared to 4? Mm-hmm. And what's the difference of them having a medical bag that's centrally located for everybody to grab from compared to each one of them having an individual first aid kit?
Right.
So those are all things you can get out of utilizing simulation when you look at the difference between the default settings of your loadout and making a custom loadout. So I have done a few that I've updated for myself that will allow us to drive some observations and lessons learned. And I've done that for modifying the police officer, I've done it for the patrol car, and I've done it for the fire pump truck. Once I'm done and satisfied with the loadout, I can then go into, and we're doing this as a single participant so that you and I can share and discuss as we go through it. You go into single participant, joining a new scenario. And this is where you'll find your custom levels compared to the baseline package offerings that we have. As a note and reminder, when you get the subscription, it automatically comes with some content. For now, it comes with a non-denominational church, and it can also, or it does come with a middle school. Mm-hmm. But we also do custom content. So as a one-time capability, you contract with CRLT, and you might get your private church, or you might get a specific elementary school or a specific high school, which you can then share with all other participants as you're doing some type of multi-participant experience.
Yeah.
But for today, we are going to highlight what you would get in the standard package, which is the CRLT middle school. Mm-hmm. So you click on the middle school and you come out here and you notice we have difficulty and time of day. So I want to explain that a little bit so people understand what this gives you as a varied and unique experience. Not every simulation experience will be the same.
Right.
So the way we wanted to do that, but still make it case study and real world data significant, is that we've divided it up into difficulty levels: easy, normal or medium, and hard. Mm-hmm. Right? And then we've also done that as based on the time of day, which is morning, afternoon, or evening. Mm-hmm. So for us today, we're going to choose hard, right? We don't want to be easy on ourselves, and we're going to choose morning. Each of them, regardless of the time of day and the difficulty, are still case study and real-world statistically relevant. So the statistical probability of the outcome of the decisions you make and what you encounter is still based on something that we've pulled from research from national level references. And then you go ahead and you click Start Single Player.
All right. After our test results, maybe we should have done easy.
Yeah. Well, it'll definitely, the harder it is, the more lessons are going to drive out of discussion in the final phase. Once you come into this, this is your continuing piece of the startup. You now would select your level of command. This is something internal to CRLT, but this allows you to understand the influence of what you want, particularly if you're a multi-participant. But even here, you could select any one of the three that you have as options, LOC 1, 2, or 3. And really that goes into whether or not you are the first responder, the tactical commander, or the incident commander. So because we're doing single participant and we're going to be doing all of that, I'm selecting LOC3 incident commander as a function. And I can also, I believe, if I click on this person's icon, I can now customize that individual to look the way I want.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah,
That's
so
great.
we've got several different options up here, and we're going to continue adding this content in. Eventually, we want to get to the point of you being able to customize your character enough that it looks like you, creating an avatar of your own users. But I'll stick with the default, and then I would select in there, who is it I'm participating as today? We can do police officers, EMT, fire, and then also in special packaging, we have the ability that you can operate as safety team volunteers, or you can also operate as faculty members.
Right.
So teachers, superintendents, that type of thing.
School training.
So we will start based on first responders at the scene, police officers. So we select PO. PO then is, well, how many number of officers would you have responding at the exact same time? Not overall all the officers you want, just what would be your first responders immediately in that area.
Right.
So typically off of scenarios that we see across the U.S. right now, 50% of incidents are over before law enforcement arrives on the scene.
Yeah.
And officer arrival is typically at about 4 to 5 minutes. So you can imagine that in 2.5 minutes in your arrival time, you're already looking at, with the national average, you're looking at upwards of 14 to 16 wounded in 2.5 minutes. So that is an extremely difficult scenario to go into with only 2 police officers arriving on the scene.
Right.
So we'll see what it generates us on our response time, but we're going to select 2 police officers that were in the jurisdiction within just a couple minutes of response time, and we'll see what ends up happening to them. So we will select 2. If I wanted to, I could add in more, but I think this is appropriate for start. Once we're satisfied with the numbers, we would just come down here and we click start.
Perfect.
So when I do that, it's going to go into a loadout screen. It is going to do all of the, from the time of the incident occurring, from the active shooter against the victims, it is starting. And we're not there on arrival yet. So those have to play out before we arrive. So it does have about a 2-minute loadout because all those things are being generated with the outcomes of the threat compared to the innocence.
It's kind of setting the stage.
It's setting the stage, right? So this is an opportunity as we integrate dispatch and operation centers and everything else that we have planned for next year. Those things will be able to get integrated in even as we're developing the scene before we're actually on the scene.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So when you're ready, you just click start and we'll be back to you as soon as we are ready to place our first assets.